Hello, everybody, and welcome to the fifth installment of Walking Down the Warwick Road. Hard to believe that we've done 4 episodes of this already, but this month's installment we're really excited about as we look at the 1983 FA Cup final run and ultimate victory. Joined, of course, by my co-host Pete Molyneux. It's been a little bit, Pete. Sort of doing this one, I guess, at the end of the month, where I think we did the last couple in the beginning and middle of March, or February. So a little bit of time off, but we're back at it. How you been?
Been very well, thanks, Tim. I don't know about time off, but yeah, been doing okay. Yeah, and we thought this might be a good opportunity, with it being the international break, when we're not caught up in the midst of the current situation, just to and hopefully people are gagging for a bit of Man United history. That this would be a good day to do it.
Absolutely. And we always like to, one thing we always encourage, obviously, is we want you to get your comments in. We want people to get their questions or memories. Already Gaynor is here. Good evening, Gaynor. How are you? And she was at both finals. So get your memories in too, Gaynor. And Pete, we like to bring on Reds to come on and chat with us. And we're joined by another longtime Red, Roger Gardner. Roger, how you doing? I know we were just talking. We interact with each other on Twitter and such, but it's good to have you on.
Yeah, I'm glad your memory is half as good as mine. I go back quite a long way. I was brought to United by Tommy Docherty in 1976, so he set the standard really for others to follow, I believe.
Nice one. Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with it next. We were just going to get you to tell us a bit about how you started supporting United, a bit about yourself, and maybe some of your, iconic memories and what drew you to become a United supporter.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As I say, I've been following United probably since 75, 76, when I was only 6 years of age. I was somewhat lucky because my grandma was friendly with Tommy Docherty's wife. His first wife, Agnes, and they remained in touch. And when I was about 6, he sent me a scarf and a poster. It was one of those Admiral scarves with the picture of the team on one side, and United sort of stuck with me ever since. I've been a league match ticket book holder. I've been to numerous games, semi-finals, and lots of big games. But the 80s era is probably the one for me. I was sort of between 10 and 20 in that era. And just great days.
Yeah, nice one. Well, Pete, might as well get started here. And Pete, we finished off last episode with sort of Tommy Docherty's win in the FA Cup final. Obviously, it was the special about the Doc, second of our 2-part series, second episode. And can you just maybe between you and Roger, just give us a sense of, so we win the FA Cup in 1977, and then obviously the Doc is sacked for falling in love, and then of course we move into the Dave Sexton era, and can you just give us maybe between the two of you, just sort of what was the mood like after the Doc gets sacked, maybe set the table of sort of what happened through the Sexton era, and then ultimately get us into what we're going to be talking about today.
I can take that one away. Dave Sexton came in. I think we'd all fallen in love with Tommy Doc there and thought it would take us on from 77, but it wasn't to be. So we have to get on with it. What can't be cured has to be endured. Dave Sexton came with a very good record. His record at Chelsea and QPR was excellent, and he was an excellent coach. There's no doubt about that. But the trouble is, he was a safety first manager. I think you could write dozens of books about management in any form, but football being one of them. But basically, you're either an optimistic manager or you're a little bit cautious. Dave Sexton fell into the cautious category, and within those 4 years, it came through in the football at Old Trafford. It was very, I wouldn't say don't lose at all costs. It wasn't quite as bad, I think, as the Van Hal and the Mourinho time we've had recently, but it wasn't far off. So there wasn't the flair, there wasn't the passion. The crowd started to drop away. And he did 4 years. He got to one cup final, but really we never came that close. We got one runners up in the league, but we were miles behind Liverpool in the end. Anyway, after that, it was very dour, that 4 years. We needed a character again. And we got one with Big Ron Atkinson. Flash Ron, he had many nicknames. He wasn't everybody's cup of tea. We don't like our managers flash. We like them confident. But he was flash, not arrogant. And the main thing is we wanted him to give us our football back, basically. Reds will know that have followed him for even the last 5 years. We've got to go on the pitch, at least trying to win football matches with style. And Ron brought that back more or less right away.
100%, Pete. I mean, I think the first game of the era that really sticks with me is the game against Wolves at Old Trafford when Robbo signed on the pitch and Sammy McIlroy hit a hat-trick. You know, it was just a great game.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, it built two good teams. It built a very good team, at West Brom before he came to Old Trafford with some really good flair players. And it built a very good team at Cambridge. I think they had back-to-back promotions or were set up for that. So he had good form behind him. But he had one job to do, and that was to win the league title.
There he is. She'll put up a picture of Big Ron.
In 1983, we'd now gone 16 years without being English champions, which for Manchester United, anybody that watched them then felt that was wrong. Not because we've got a divine right to be top of the English or European leagues, but we do believe that it's what we should always be aiming for. And we weren't really getting close, and unfortunately at the same time Liverpool were. So Big Ron was brought in to do that job. And I think in his first season, 81-82, which was before this season we're going to talk about, he'd had a decent start. He certainly brought the football back, the good football, the attractive football. Quite a few of the players had moved on from the Dock era. Sexton had brought in Gordon McQueen, who was still there, and given a debut to Gary Bailey. But as Roger said, he signed Brian Robson for what was a record $1.5 million, was it, Roger, at the time? Something like that.
Was indeed, yeah.
And he proved to be one of the best signings Manchester United have ever made. As a player, as a man, as a captain, as a leader, superb.
I'm going to come to you in a minute, Roger, but I'm just going to get to a couple comments here quickly. Gaynor says, going from the way we played under Tommy Dock to the way we played under Sexton was like chalk and cheese, not a great watch. Jax is in with some love for Robbo. And just a moment to shout out, if you haven't seen Jax's terrific blog from United Supporter blog called Jax Unboxed, I'll tweet it out later today, a link to it, but check it out. It's really, really good. And Gaynor, again, it was an iconic moment being at Old Trafford and watching Robbo sign his new contract. Roger, we're going to get to the cup run in a minute, but just if you could just maybe sort of outside of the FA Cup run, how did 82 and 83, that 82-83 season look otherwise?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me about his first season. I think in 83, we gathered momentum. I think at the start of the year in 83, I think the form had dipped somewhat, but they did sort of get some real gear together by April, and certainly we blew Arsenal away, not just in one semi-final in 83, but in two semi-finals. We reached the League Cup final in 83, and I think we saw the first signs there that when Brian Robson was injured, we didn't bring it all to the party, and we ran out of gas at the end of the Milk Cup final, as it was known then. And I think obviously getting to the FA Cup final for United, although they hadn't won the league since '67, it was a massive thing. 77, was a long time ago, and they were just tremendous memories. And those games against Arsenal, as Ron would say, was solid gold.
Yeah, for sure. How about yourself, Pete? Memories from the outside of the cup run, memories from that 82-83 season. Roger, you touched on his first season. I believe we finished third in his first season.
Yeah. And I think that was a big surprise to everybody, actually, because we'd been really quite poor under Dave Sexton in the previous season. I think we won the last 8 games in a row, but the board didn't like what they saw. And I think, as Ron said in his book, there was a lot of work to be done. And I think third was an excellent finish for his first season, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's spot on, Roger. It was, and I think at one stage in that season we'd gone top. I think Alisson scored the winner in the last minute at Anfield. I don't know if you recall.
Oh,
about October.
I certainly do. Yeah, sublime.
October,
goal.
yeah. I think after four games we were bottom of the league in his first season, big run, and by October we were top. But in each of those seasons under Atkinson, Ron Atkinson, who I've got an awful lot of respect for, there was always a wobble somewhere in the league campaign. Sometimes, as we've touched on Robbo, who we all love, he did often sustain injuries at critical times. And although we weren't a one-man team, we did really, really miss him at crucial times. But he did finish third in 81-82, and 82-83, he moved on and he finished third again, behind Liverpool and Watford, if you recall. Yeah. Liverpool won it because they got off to a good start, carried on. We had a bit of a wobble around Christmas in 82, recovered, as Roger says, in 83. But Liverpool were not out of sight then, but they just kept ploughing away. We never got close to them in 82, 83. We'd lost to Valencia early on in the UEFA Cup. Because we've got in that, but we had a good run as Roger said in the League Cup as well. We got to that final. So when the FA Cup run started, United were battling on 2 cup fronts to get to Wembley twice, and we actually got to the final of the League Cup. The first time we'd got there, lost to Liverpool sadly again. I'm sorry I have to keep mentioning Liverpool. But historically, if I'm covering it, I have to mention it. They won the bloody league and they won the League Cup. Beat us.
I was going to say, I know, just to interject the Liverpool thing. I know talking to you, you always say that it's really unfortunate that Atkinson ran up against those great Liverpool teams, because it really was it was the misfortune of them just dominating at the time.
Yes, the way United dominated the league in the 90s and the early noughties, Liverpool dominated it in the late 70s and 80s. Yeah. They were European champions 4 times in about 6 years. They got to another final, the Heysel one, which they lost. But yeah, Liverpool had a team that were consistent and consistently good. We often beat them at Anfield and at Old Trafford in the league and in the cup competitions, but we'd always have a wobble somewhere. And I think in 83, it came around Christmas time, if I recall. Other times it came during the run-in. But so really, all that was left in 83, we took the run to the end, the league run, but we weren't getting close. We'd lost the League Cup final. So the FA Cup was our salvation, as it often is in not bad times, but even when we're not winning the league, we've always been able to win cups. And I think Roger touched on this as well. The FA Cup then was very, very important. It really was. That put the glory in Man United. It was. If you won the cup, you had a full day to yourself on TV. Right. Everybody watched it, and it brought. It wasn't more important. The better team won the league, but the team that got the glory was the cup team. So. Right. That brings us to January 83, I think, unless I've missed anything.
It has. And I'm going to come to you both on this, but I'll come to you first, Pete, as I put up a picture here. I know we're going back almost 40 years, but who were the Stretford Ends heroes back then? If you can just enlighten and give your memories, maybe the both of you, to give your memories on some of these players and the impact that they made.
Well, to answer the first bit of your question, they were all our heroes. But Gidman quickly had come in, had been brought by Big Ron. He got a bargain. Mike Duxby had come through the youth team, played right back. Gidman was a right back as well. Lou McCarthy, we all know, still there from the Tommy Dock years, but coming to the end of his time, he'd have a testimonial in '84. As would Martin Buchan, who he's not on there, but those good servants were coming to an end. Moran and McQueen were the two centre backs. McQueen had come from Leeds under Sexton. Albiston had come through under Doherty. Muren was bought by Atkinson at the start of '82-'83. Had a great career with Ajax, won European Cup medals, and World Cup Championship medals, and then Robbo, our new signing, had come at the same time as Muren and Moses. Do you want to do the bottom line, Roger?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Gary Bailey almost became our goalkeeper by accident when Jim Blythe, who Dave Sexton was going to sign, picked up an injury, and he made some great saves in that game against West Brom in '78, which was on national TV, or at least the highlights were. So he already started to make a name for himself. Sadly, next to Gary Bailey there, Steve Coppell, who for me was just a sublime player on the right side of United's midfield, and in fact he didn't play again after April '83. You got Big Norman there, who made his debut the season before, and probably in my top 3 all-time United players, to be fair. Ray Wilkins, when Robbo came to the club, was England captain and United captain as well. You've got Ashley Grimes there, who was good out wide, a bit of a super sub. And the early days of Paul McGrath, who Big Ron later described as a Rolls-Royce player. So to be fair, I mean, I've looked back at the '83 team today for the first time in a while. And actually, I think a lot of those players would walk into the current lineup, no danger.
Yeah. And of course, 2 players that he did bring in, Frank Stapleton and Remy Moses, which just, I guess, could have been included on this list as well. The impact that that they made that season. Can you just touch on maybe those 2 players as well?
Yeah, Frank Stapleton for me was never prolific. He was never that 20-goal a season man that United craved. The first since George Best. That was still standing. But he was so good at bringing other players into the game. Obviously, really good with his head and quite a powerful player. Rated him. And also Remy Moses came from West Bromwich Albion as part of the Robson deal. So we gave West Brom over £2 million in 1981, and also took their manager, which was a real dent for them. But I think Dennis Law described Remy Moses as sort of the modern day Nobby Stiles. He was that good, and certainly he was another player that was forsaken by injuries, really, and when we didn't have him and we didn't have Robbo, I think the United midfield really missed them.
Right. Well, thanks for taking us through the key players in that season, chaps. Why don't we move on to the cup run now, and we'll put up the round by round graphic just so people can see exactly how things played out. People are fortunately for people, we do have clips to go along with these games. So as we go round by round, we'll just play the goals, or everyone will get a chance to see every goal from this campaign. So why don't we go into the West Ham game?
Stapleton's touch, and Coppell! Second week running, Steve Coppell. 1-0 to Manchester United. The Muren corner from the far side produces the goal. Brian Robson is underneath it, and he's put Stapleton away. What a brilliant finish by Frank Stapleton. The goal made by Robson, who goes to congratulate the scorer.
Right. So first game, round 3 against West Ham, as we just saw. Pete, I'll come to you. I'll come to you first on this one. Can you take us through that one?
Well, it warms my heart in one way seeing that. The goals, Coppell, such opportunities and he took the goals really well. Frank Stapleton, a great left foot shot there. You'll notice that the pitch in those days was used on the wings to play football on and to grow rice in the middle. They were dreadful pitches after October. Bobby Charlton used to say that after about October, November, the only grass was by the corner flags. All the grounds were like that then. So when we all get a bit nostalgic, people of mine and Roger's age, and think football was great in those days, there's a lot of it that wasn't, and the pitches was one of them. But the players learned to play on it or grew up playing on those pitches, and it didn't affect, as you can see, just from those goals. Great to see the old Stretford end, and we'll see it again in one of the games we come to, the Everton home game, where you get the explosion of joy and passion when United score. But we beat West Ham fairly comfortably that day, from what I recall. West Ham were a good cup side, and we were going through a period. I think 3 times in 4 years we played West Ham in the cup, beat them twice, lost once. But anything you particularly recall from that game, Roger?
No, I always thought, when West Ham came to Old Trafford, they always brought a really good electric atmosphere. Their fans were always up for it. And I think in later years under Big Ron, West Ham would be a bit of a thorn in our side. But thankfully, by 1983, they hadn't discovered how to be it. And I was just glad to see them off, Pete.
Yeah. And like you say, I think the turn of the year, some of the players that were coming back from injury. Steve Coppell did have an injury that he'd got in '81 in an England match, had a cartilage operation, and he took a few games to get back in that season, but he came back. Robson was coming back from an injury, and Wilkins had an injury, broken his cheekbone in a League Cup match at Bournemouth. So January, the key players were coming back in, and I think we were just too good for West Ham on the day, quite simply. So
Jackson there with a comment agreeing with you, Roger, on her love and appreciation for Stevie Coppell.
Fantastic player.
Yeah. Right. So we finished off with West Ham, and of course took us to, I believe, Luton in the next game. Luton away.
Coppell against Money, relaying it quickly to Moses. Moses trying one, and in the back of the net, Remy Moses, in the first minute of the second half, been a midfield grafter for the first 45 minutes, scores the opening goal so quickly, first few seconds of the second half. Well, Coppell did well there to relay it to him so quickly, and then quickly played forward, and a nice drive, which Finlay looked as if he got, but couldn't manage. 7th corner in the second half. Stapleton getting in there, and Moran! And now it is all over. Stapleton got the touch. The goalkeeper couldn't get to it quite, or couldn't control it.
Right, I guess my first question is, was either one of you in the away on that day?
Yes.
I wasn't. I wish I was.
Yes.
Amazing.
They banned away fans at one stage at Luton. I think that was a bit later on after the trouble with Millwall. And I'm not obsessed with pitches, but you'll notice that one was greener, and it was February. Also the end of January. But it was a plastic pitch. Luton were allowed to have a plastic pitch for a while. And I think they still had it then for that cup game. But yeah, it was a good trip down to Luton. It didn't usually fairly peaceful for the 80s. You didn't get a lot of trouble down there. Good following of United supporters. And again, Remy Moses, who Roger touched on as a latter-day Nobby Styles at the time, probably Scott McTominay type player, to bring it to a current player. Manchester lad from Moss Side, Remy Moses, hard as nails. if you were going in the trenches, you'd have him with you. And didn't score many, but opportunists that day. And Kevin Moran didn't get many, but I think the game wasn't clinched till right near the end. I think we scored just after half time, and then right near the end. But again, quite I'd say a competent performance, but exciting as well. It was very rarely, if ever, boring under Ron Atkinson. We will have had 0-0 draws, but you'd turn up and 9 times out of 10 you were entertained.
Anything to add to that, Roger, or thoughts on that game, or memories of tremendous strike, obviously by Remy Moses?
I mean,
left foot, wrap his foot around it.
People probably don't remember much of Luton, but they were managed by David Pleat at the time, and they were really going somewhere for a club of their size. And in fact, it was Luton who stopped Ron Atkinson's famous 10 in a row winning streak in 85-86. So actually, people probably overlooked Luton on that list of FA Cup victories, but if you could go down to Kenilworth Road and come back with a win, I think in those days you were grateful, especially on that pitch, because it took a certain technique that most of the players weren't used to, because they didn't play on it week in, week out, like obviously the Luton players did.
Yeah, absolutely.
The bounce used to be different on those pitches, just slightly, but Roger's right. Luton were in the top flight then.
Interesting.
Luton that were in the first division at the time.
We just talked, like, hitting on the fan culture a little bit. We talked about we looked at Doc's Red Army and the traveling support and how tremendous it was even in the second division in that season. When you look at the 80s, United notoriously always travels well, but was the support, or maybe to come to both of you, was the support as ardent as it was under the dock, or galvanized as it was under the dock?
I'd like to think so.
Yeah. No, go on, Rog.
I was going to say, I think it was probably a bit more raw, in the late 70s. I think we had a bit more of a hooligan element in those days. But I think what I really remember about going to games, particularly in the 80s, was sort of the atmosphere outside the ground as much as anything. You turn up to a big stadium on the day for a big game, and you'd get the car to within 200 yards of the stadium, and you'd already be feeling the atmosphere. That they were really special times, and they were times for the football fan. I think football's, for television these days, it's tended to have ignored the everyday fan that travels to games, but that's what the 80s were all about. Because let's be honest, there was no live football in England until after 1980, after the 83 final. I think the first live game was Tottenham-Nottingham Forest in 83-84, so it was a very unusual thing. So if you wanted to go and see a game, you had to turn up on the day.
Right. A couple comments here coming in from Jax. I remember those days when Luton had the fake pitch. No one liked going there. I can't imagine. I mean, we know some teams have a fake pitch now, and the quality of a plastic pitch has come a long way since the 80s. So it must have been like a carpet on concrete almost going there to play. Yeah. So,
I think
and then of course Gainer in with a comment.
It's happened to me.
Yeah. It saddens me. The FA Cup has seems to have lost its magic for a lot of these fans. Maybe that's something you can both speak to as well. Sort of. Nowadays, yeah. Go on, Pete.
Yes, the as regards the fan culture, when I was going in those days in '83, so I'm about 28 then, I'd been going for home and away for 10 years at least, followed them for before that. What you notice about the cup games is there's always an expression, all the old lads come out for it. Now, that wasn't a sexist thing. There was just the old girls came out for it as well. But you saw faces at the cup games you hadn't seen at the league games. That doesn't mean there were part-time supporters for league games. We always took a big following. Under the Dock, as we know, under Atkinson, it did revitalise. I think Sexton's time did quell it a little bit. But United have always taken numbers. But for the FA Cup games, wherever it was, whatever night it was on, when the games became live around this time, United supporters were there, and you'd see old Ted and Nutty Norman from the Stretford end and Paraffin Pete and all these characters. They all turned out for a cup game because it was something special. I'm not sure it's too different now. It is at the moment because we can't get into the blooming games. But if United were some of the cup games I've gone to in recent years, West Ham at night, Chelsea at night, Arsenal at night. Those games, just since Ollie took over, those games were up there with any of the atmospheres from the 80s and the 70s. But yeah, Atkinson, once you get a manager playing attractive, winning football, United support that's already large just goes to another level. And whatever's on your banner, United wife, kids, or United husband, kids, because we've got to be fair. Whatever priority that's in, when United are playing well, the manager's doing well, we're playing well and we're winning, United just goes to that number one position. And you forgo weddings and funerals and bar mitzvahs. And so whenever we're playing well, it galvanises an already great support. And that was happening because that probably nicely leads us on to the fifth round, Tim. I don't want to take over the MC role, but Derby County away.
Foul, it was about 4 yards off the ball when the shot was finally taken. But now Koppel, right side, far side, this is the best chance of the match and it's made to count. .84 and Whiteside leaves Foster and Cherry in dejection. And the supporters who have come down from Manchester in utter delight. At long last, all their possession put something on the score sheet. And Whiteside is the scorer.
Sorry, Pete. I think I kind of cut you off there with the video, but
I'm happy to be bounced for Norman Whiteside. First of all, there's been two great bits of commentary about Norman Whiteside. Many people remember the '85 Cup final when Hughes put him through for what was the winning goal, and the commentator just said Whiteside's onside and let him run on and score the goal. That one, it said Whiteside, far side. And he scored. So anyway, just I don't know if those commentators rehearsed that ad lib, but it was spot on. But all I was going to say, and it talks about the fans that had come down from Manchester, and of course it wasn't just from Manchester. United had out of town fans from far and wide in the UK and beyond then, and they did travel to turn up. 12,000 fans got in for that match. Derby were heading for the third tier, sadly. We're only getting low crowds. The baseball ground held about 33,000. They gave us 12,000 tickets. Not much trouble, but just an incredible atmosphere.
Oh, it's a great ground, Pete, wasn't
it? In a way, it was built by Meccano, but or Lego. But aesthetically, it wasn't the great ground. They just kept adding bits on, didn't they? Like one of those farms you see out in the country. But great atmosphere, Roger, yes.
Oh, tremendous place. It was actually built for baseball, and some of the grounds actually faced away from the pitch for that purpose, believe it or not.
I never knew that, Rog.
Amazing. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've been there numerous times.
Tremendous.
Tim, in that hullabaloo where it showed the United fans, and that was in the lower tier. There was as many again in the upper tier. Just quickly, a mate of mine had married a girl from Derby, and they made a lovely couple. And her father ran a pub in Derby. So whenever United played there, between about '77 and the '90s, we'd go and we'd stay over. And we went and stayed over for this one the night before. Went to a nightclub called Gossips when there were still nightclubs, and it's not a very famous place, Gossips, but I believe that Agadoo's record what's it called? Agadu's record. I've forgotten the blooming thing now. Anyway, the Agadu record, something by Black Lace. They used to play it there. It got famous there and got to #1 in the charts because the DJ used to play it. So that's the only thing that Gossips is famous for. I partook of too much ale that night. We were all staying at Jed's house. Him and his wife, they just had a baby daughter. I was put in the camp bed in the baby's room where the cot was. The baby woke up at 6 a.m. crying. I had a head from hell. And most of that day I was on coffee and paracetamol. I used to stay fairly sober for matches because I didn't want to win anything. But when that goal went in, I had to scream, I had to shout, I had to fall about and go down about 12 rows in the stand. But my head was still killing me from the night before. So fond memories, but painful memories of Whiteside's winner.
Those are the stories.
There's a good tackle in that.
Yeah, those are the stories you can't get from a book.
I was going to say that there's a really good tackle in that game between Remy Moses and Archie Gemmell. If you want to see how well Remy Moses could tackle,
really
find the video somewhere. Definitely worth watching.
I will do that.
I guess you wouldn't be allowed to tackle like that now.
No.
Yeah. Definitely not. Okay, so through the Derby game, and where are we going next, Pete? Arsenal?
Well, Everton at home in the 6th round.
Everton.
Yeah.
I forgot about Everton.
A decent... have we not got the clip?
I do have the clip. I was going to say, how can I forget about it? I will, and here we go.
Here's Macari again for Stapleton. It's one from the books of fairy tales. We've had 2 minutes of injury time, and the fairy tale aspect comes from Macari. It was his header there, and Stapleton's volley. The man who can do nothing wrong in terms of Manchester at the moment, Frank Stapleton, the hero of 2 Manchester derbies this season. He's taken United, surely, into the semi-finals of the FA Cup.
Roger, I'll come to you first. I mean, another tremendous strike there, sort of header, cushioned header down on the volley.
Yeah, it was. I mean, another Stapleton goal. He always seemed to get important goals for United. He scored a really good one a couple of years later at Anfield in a 1-0 win. Most people remember, but the atmosphere at Old Trafford on that afternoon, people reckon was one of the loudest ever, especially when that Stapleton goal went in. Everton were just kind of becoming that great side that they were in sort of 85, 86. They were a couple of years behind. And that was a real dent for Howard Kendall that game, because actually Everton were probably more a thorn in United's side in the latter 80s than Liverpool were. Everton were very good at beating us. They beat us twice in 84, 85, by quite embarrassing scorelines. So it does bring back good memories, and it's great to see us beat Everton in that game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How about yourself, Pete? Roger touched on it there, the atmosphere. And, I've seen that clip before, but going back and watching it again, the one that stands out for me, obviously, is the atmosphere against Barcelona. But surprisingly for me, that atmosphere is right up there in terms of, just immense in the Stretford end when he scored.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we did the first show, didn't we, about great crowds at Old Trafford?
Yes.
Earlier at the back end of last year, Tim, because as a homage to the fact that we've not got those crowds in football grounds at the moment, but hopefully they'll soon be back. And all Manchester United fans that know anything about the history will know about the Barcelona game in 84, the atmosphere there, Milan in 69. A game back in the 50s at Main Road against Bilbao when we came back to win 3-0 after being 5-3 down. My uncles, my father, friends talk about these games still, not just old men's tales. They are old men and they are tales. but they have substance because the atmospheres went to another level where there's that unbridled, almost primal scream when you score. There's certain goals scored that you can't celebrate enough. You can't shout loud enough. And the one Stapleton got there, Roger's spot on. A replay at Everton would have been very, very difficult. That could have been the end of our cup run. We don't know. Everton were becoming a good team, but that was 2 minutes into it, injury time. They didn't allow much injury time. They didn't put boards up. It was up to the ref to have a little bit of time on. Macari towards the end of his career, Big Ron threw him on with 12 minutes to go as a sort of, okay, let's see what this can do. And he knocked that ball down. So he's only a little fella, Lou Macari. We all know that. And he got up and nodded it down. And Stapleton volleyed it with such sweetness right into the place where a good goalkeeper, very good goalkeeper, Neville Southall, couldn't have reached it. If he'd had a stepladder, he couldn't have reached it. And the outburst from around the ground was immense, but on the Stretford end, it was just where it goes ballistic. Me and my mates, who I still sit with now, I used to stand with on the Stretford end, we were making plans. We knew the replay would be on the Tuesday, what time we'd pick each other up to go, and what time we'd get down to Old Trafford on the Sunday, because they sold tickets at the ground for a replay in the cup. Then you had to move pretty quickly in those days. We were making those sort of plans because we thought it was going to a replay. Amazing. But as John Lennon said, life is what happens while you're making plans.
Pete, before we get to the Arsenal game, you seem to be fading into the darkness there.
I'll go and put a shilling in the meter.
Yeah, just a tremendous strike too. So that would have been, obviously he had the tremendous strike against was it West Ham or Luton? I'm trying to remember back to Stapleton's first goal. Early in that competition. So he had that tremendous the left-footed strike and then that tremendous volley. Two major contributions. He ended up with 14 goals that season? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head.
I'm not sure.
I'll take your word for that, Tim.
I thought it was 14 goals.
14 it feels right, that, yeah.
In his whole United career, he got 60. That was about a 1-in-4 ratio. So, that's not prolific. But as I said earlier, he definitely got important goals for United. And I always thought United missed somebody to go with him really well, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
I need to give Jim Arnold credit. I apologise. I thought it was Neville Southall was the goalie, but I need to give Poppycorn credit. Jim Arnold was the Everton keeper that day, not Neville Southall. So I sit corrected.
He does go on to say he doesn't think Southall would have saved it either, and he's probably right on that one.
I think if they'd have had both goalkeepers,
they wouldn't have saved it.
Right. You touch on Stapleton there, Tim.
Yep.
Manchester United fans knew about Stapleton's scoring, especially in big cup games. In the 79 final, he got one of those goals to put Arsenal 2-0 up. Ron Atkinson in 1981, 2 years after that final and 2 years before the year we're in, one of Ron Atkinson's very first jobs as manager was to rush to the airport to try and sort Joe Jordan out of leaving. He was flying to Milan to be offered a contract there. There was an exodus of English players to Italy, particularly at the time. The second wave of English footballers going abroad. He couldn't stop Joe. Joe had made his mind up. He'd served as well, and he wanted probably to get a good payday in Milan. So that was right at the start of the season. Ron pulled a few strings and got Stapleton from Arsenal they couldn't agree on a transfer fee. It went to a tribunal. United 900,000. Arsenal wanted about 1 million more. It was the start of a lot of the animosity between United and Arsenal off the pitch. The next time the United board, the directors went down there, they weren't invited into the directors' box. And so it's not just the Fergie and Wenger years. there was trouble, not trouble, but there was a bit of animosity because they felt we cheated them out of Stapleton. But of course, Stapleton was a very, very good club. He just wanted to come to a great club.
Tremendous segue there, Pete, into the semi-final against Arsenal.
Robson is again well forward for Arsenal, and Bailey comes to meet him, and here comes Petrovic, and Robson's in there, and so is Woodcock. A terrible mix-up involving Gary Bailey. Here comes Brian Robson. He's in with a chance. Yes! The Manchester United captain has equalised. 5 minutes into the second half. A well-taken goal. As the play developed down the left, Brian Robson made his run across the penalty area, evaded the challenge, and with his left foot wide of George Wood's left hand. Orbiston, Grimes is onside, and so is Whiteside here. Oh, I say! It's amazing! It's absolutely fantastic what Whiteside has achieved. He's put Manchester United in front, only 3 weeks after scoring at Wembley in the Milk Cup final. He's restored the pride to Old Trafford. They've come from behind. Arthur Orbiston forward, and Norman Whiteside saw his opportunity. He came from an inside left position. Onside, said the linesman.
Right, so conceding a goal due to a mix-up at the back. I know it froze there a little bit, but it's just the Arsenal goal anyway, so I don't think we want to see it. So bit of a mix-up there defensively at the back, and then, I mean, all the goals in this competition so far, you look at the little curling run there from Brian Robson, just inside the left channel and settling it with his chest, but still had a lot to do with the finish. And then, of course, the thunderbomb left-footed strike from Whiteside, 2 tremendous goals. Talk us through Arsenal semi-final. Come to you first, Pete.
First of all, you notice a big difference between Arsenal's goal and our 2, not being biased, but any of us on this call could have put that ball in that Woodcock scored. Whereas our 2 goals were just brilliant. Robson, the way he turned and hit it almost in one movement, swerved and hit it. Whiteside, it's volley. Don't forget this lad at that stage. Now I better get my facts right because Poppycorn will be on to me again. He was come on the year before at 17, so he might have been 18. If he'd had a birthday, Poppycorn will tell me. He was a very young lad, and he was playing. He was a man boy, Norman Whiteside. When he was 16, he had the build and the look of a man, a bit like probably Duncan Edwards had. Although obviously I never saw Edwards play in reality play, but Guy was setting the world alight with it. He scored I think in nearly each of his first games in trophies. He'd scored in the League Cup final in the 2-1 defeat. He would go on and score in the final we're coming to in a bit. Mm-hmm. Norman Whiteside, I say no more, an absolute hero to anyone that followed United in that time. But that goal that they scored, that Slutchy one, that was the first goal we conceded in the competition. All the other games, 2-0, 2-0, 1-0, 1-0. I was hoping at that stage we might go through and equal a record of winning the cup without conceding a goal. But it didn't spoil me day too much. Great day out at Villa Park, and heads on all 4 sides of the ground.
Yeah, tremendous.
I think Big Ron said when United went behind, he didn't really worry because he was convinced we were going to come through and win the game anyway.
Mm-hmm.
That was his confidence, you know.
Yeah. Well, by then, Roger, you'll remember the team. Yeah, the team. Yeah, of course. Woodcock scored, I think, 36 minutes. And then we scored just after half time, or was it? No, yeah, it was the start of the second half, Robson's goal, and Whiteside about 70 minutes in. So, but of course, Arsenal, as Roger alluded to before, that day they wanted revenge because we'd beaten them in the League Cup semi-final over 2 legs. And when I say beaten them, we whooped them at Highbury in the first leg. We were 4-0 up. 4-0 up. I could have got the coach home after an hour. And they pulled 2 back and made
2
it
goals
4-2.
for Steve Coppell again.
Yes, Steve Coppell. Yeah, he led the line brilliantly that night.
There's that man again.
And we won 2-1 at home.
Yeah.
So we beat them 6-3 on aggregate. And so they really wanted revenge, but it wasn't to be.
No.
Tremendous.
A great ground for us generally, Villa Park. And I always like looking at the Holte End and seeing it full of reds. You know, it's fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there definitely has been some memorable games, cup games at Villa Park over the years for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. So that into the final against Brighton, and maybe just if you could both just take a moment maybe and set the stage for us in terms of, obviously United go into the cup final as favorites. Fancy our chances after what has been a tremendous cup run, terrific goals. Pete alluded to it. We only concede 1 goal. Do you have any thoughts or recollections that you can sort of use to set up what it was like before that game?
Yeah, I remember Brighton turned up to the cup final in a helicopter and flew over the stadium whilst United sort of turned up in their coach, you know, because I think Brighton was sponsored by British Caledonian or someone. But Big Ron had already got his champagne attitude. But by this time he was becoming a media star. He'd been on ITV for years. So I think people expected United under him to walk it, Pete, to be quite honest.
Yes, I'd say so. Brighton had just finished at the bottom and had got relegated. So they'd had about 3 or 4 seasons in the top flight. The first time they'd ever come up, around about 79, they came into the top flight. Did very well. Their manager, Jim Amelia, was a bit of a character. He walked on. Not only did they fly in a helicopter, but they were ahead of the game of Liverpool's Spice Boys of 1996. Jim Amelia wore his dancing white shoes. So he tried to outflash Big Flash Ron, and walked out in a suit with white shoes on. I think we were confident, but none of us could forget too much that 7 years before we should have wiped the floor with Southampton, and we hadn't. So I think we were quietly optimistic, and that team now was playing superb football, superb winning football. There is just one player we have to talk about. Well, we can talk about anybody you like, but there's a lad there called Davis, that not many people will have heard of. They'll have heard of the others if they know anything about United. But one guy that's missing, sadly, is Steve Coppell. He'd come to a point there where he didn't play again, as Roger said. So sadly, he didn't make the cup final, even though he'd played all through that season and been a great servant for United.
Right.
United had a choice of Ron Atkinson had a choice of 3 players he could have put in. A gangly lad called Ashley Grimes, who Reds of that era will remember, as a kind of squad player. Then they had a guy who Ron had brought in on loan from Real Madrid called Laurie Cunningham, a player he'd had at West Brom, who a few weeks before the final had scored a great overhead kick, almost as good as Rooney's against City a few years back. He was in the running, but he'd had a bad knee injury and his knee was a bit dodgy. In the end, Laurie Cunningham couldn't make it. He didn't want to risk Ashley Grimes for whatever reason, and he put a young lad in from the reserves called Alan Davis. And Alan Davis went on to have a really, really good performance. Just worked his socks off in midfield and didn't let anybody down on the day or in the replay. I know I'll stop at that point because there's a sad footnote to his career. But Alan Davis had his finest hour in that cup final and the replay, and then a year later scored in the semi-final of the Cup Winners' Cup against Juventus. A very good young player, Alan Davis.
I
Amazing.
heard as well, Pete, that Laurie Cunningham later claimed that he was actually fit, but he didn't want to let United down, so that he said he was unfit.
Oh, right.
Did you know
well,
that?
That's... No, I didn't. I'd like to know if Poppycorn knew that.
Well, a question in from Poppycorn. Didn't Remy Moses get sent off at Arsenal and was banned from the final?
Yes, spot
Yeah,
on.
I think he's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah. So who would he have put in? Have you got the team back up there again? I've got it to hand. Yeah. Who we put in? Davis was in for Koppel, I'd say. Well, it allowed him to play Wilkins and Muren, I guess, because they were both not hard men, Wilkins or Muren. They were more of silk than of steel in midfield. So perhaps he saw Davis as being the guy he could get stuck in like Moses could. So maybe that's why he went for Davis. But if that Laurie Cunningham stuff is true, it's very magnanimous of him, and he was a famous player in those days. Anyway, so
on to the final.
Yeah. I went down with a few mates. We even took a bottle of champagne with us in the boot to celebrate. I mean, it was the Ron Atkinson era after all. That we didn't get to drink that till Thursday night, but it kept. Well, basically, I think whenever I watched old cup finals when I was growing up and before I started going to them, it was always sunny. And when I started going to them, it was always sunny on cup final day. I thought it was written somewhere in the Bible that it had to be that way. But for that Brighton Cup final, it poured down all day. It was a very damp affair. But it didn't spoil the fun and it didn't spoil the day out. United support, once again, superb.
Amazing. Right, let's run the highlights.
Howlett now. Crossed in towards Smith. And a goal! Brighton have scored!
What a crazy
Gordon Smith! Good ball by Davis for Duxbury. And it came back off Jimmy Case for Duxbury. And crossed in once more, Whiteside. And Stapleton! 1-1. Augustin's made a tremendous break through the middle for Wilkins. Oh, a brilliant goal by Ray Wilkins! If Brighton are still strong enough, they can yet grab the initiative. Here's Grealish. Will he try a shot? He's thrown it for Stevens!
I told you.
2-2.
I told you.
Wilkins is looking and then in the end searched in vain. Put out there, Case. Turned on as Robinson got the legs. Scott Moran after him and Robinson still in control. Play for Smith and saved by Bailey. My word, what a remarkable finish. One Brighton player is down, Gary Howlett
One he should
on
have
his
scored with.
haunches.
Michael Robinson.
What a save that was when it looked, and a good piece of work here by Robinson.
A great piece of play.
And Smith, you thought, had to get one there.
Imagine if that
And the final whistle has gone.
Whew, right, lots to unpack in that one. So obviously going goal down, tremendous Stapleton again, right place, right time. Really real knack for goal, obviously, in the competition. Wilkins, tremendous goal. Interestingly enough, when you watch that game, it looks like Brighton's goal almost came at the expense of United sitting back. When they went up 2-1, it looked like United just sort of invited Brighton onto themselves. United invited Brighton onto them, and it just seemed like Brighton sort of got the impetus from United just not going for it at the end.
I think when Ray Wilkins scored that great goal, it was one of the great Wembley goals. The way he curled it with his best foot, his left foot, and went on a run. He went on a run. He exhausted himself so much he had to go over the bench. He said you might need to ring a sub on. He said it himself. He went crazy. That was in the 72nd minute, something like that. So only 18 minutes to go. I think most of us in the ground, and probably including the Brighton fans, thought that was it. Smith had put them ahead after 14 minutes. We'd come back through Stapleton. Wilkins got that goal. And we weren't being arrogant. I think we just thought that's it. We've won the cup. Gary Stevens equalised with 3 minutes to go. And it was a shock. It was a shock. And I think I don't think I think we wanted to play out time then Tim, but I think it was a bit of a shock of, hold on, we thought we'd won it. But the bit, so that was the 87th minute they equalised. You'll see in that last clip, right at the death, us trying to go forward a little bit, Brighton go through, and the guy passes to Smith again, okay? Yeah. And Bailey runs out and smothers it. Now, on the BBC and the ITV both covered it in those days. It was, you chose what you wanted to watch. Right. Whatever commentator you liked, or whether you liked the breaks or not, you went for BBC or ITV. The commentator on the other channel from that one, when it went to Smith, he said to Smith, and he said, and Smith must score, because it looked like it couldn't miss. Credit to Gary Bailey for getting out and down so low. That's gone down in Brighton folklore so much that when they started their fanzines about 7 or 8 years later, the Brighton fanzine, which ran for many years, was called Smith Must Score, because it's the closest they ever got to winning a top flight honour. We could have lost 3-2 that day.
I don't know if you remember that. I'm sure you remember the '79 Cup final and Gary Bailey making a mistake, towards the end. Well, if he made a mistake towards the end in '79, he definitely saved us in '83 there. Although, to be fair, I don't think he knew much about it. But, he saved it with his legs, and all he could do was go down on it and smother it. But, it was one of those shut your eyes moments and hope for the best,
Yeah, just one of those moments where you think it's over, isn't it? I mean, give away a chance like that.
Yeah,
I think Brighton had the momentum, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yes.
I said Brighton had the momentum, I think, towards the end of that game, and
it gave them belief. It gave them belief, didn't it, to go for it? I think we were caught like rabbits in the headlights just for about 5 minutes, and that can happen sometimes in a football match, and we nearly got caught, but. And that would have been a very sad ending, and we probably won't be talking about it on this show.
Yeah, exactly. So the replay moves us into the replay. Obviously, for if there's younger viewers, obviously back then there was a replay for the FA Cup final. No extra time, no penalties. So it goes to a replay, which would have been a week later Was it the following weekend? I think, if I remember.
Well, Thursday night.
Thursday night. Okay.
No, it was on the Thursday.
It was on a Thursday, right? Okay.
There often weren't FA Cup replays, but in 81, 82, and 83, there were all replays.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what they did then, Tim. They played it the following Thursday. I don't know. Perhaps there was a European final on the Wednesdays in those days. But they were rare as rocking horse teeth replays in the cup. I think the first one had been Chelsea and Leeds in 1970 to have a replay, but that was played at Old Trafford. But as Roger said, 3 years on the run, 81, 82, 83, the first game had gone to extra time and then a replay. So we all had to get down from Manchester or wherever we lived on a Thursday night, but we did it.
And
Davis, who've got a good position. Robson! That's the goal that Manchester United wanted from their captain after 25 minutes. Oh, McQueen was doing some climbing there, surely. This is Davis. Turned it in for Whiteside. 2-0 to Manchester United. Muren takes the kick. And the header by Robson finds Stapleton. McQueen made a touch, and it's been fired in. Brian Robson gets his second, and Manchester United's third. It was so easy for Robson then. Now Arnold Muren hasn't taken a penalty before for either Ipswich or Manchester United. But he scores with his left foot and makes it 4-0. And what a reception they're going to get from the biggest football fan club in the world. Congratulations from Chairman Martin Edwards and the cut from Princess Michael of Kent. the most famous club in football.
And there it was, a goal-infused replay, 4-0 United winners, and of course lifting the cup. It's one of the best sights in football still for me is watching a team up the stairs take the cup. I'm trying to remember now these days. I don't think do they still go up the stairs or do they get it on the pitch? I'm trying to remember, but just tremendous.
They go out of sight, Tim. They go up some steps, then inside,
yeah, that's right.
And then come out again. Take a lift. They go on an elevator.
Yeah, up the lift. The cup.
But yeah. But
no,
it was a goal fest. I'm sure those players. There's one thing about that team, and any great team, let alone United team. If it's a very good team, they have 11 captains in the side and one on the bench. And I would imagine those guys didn't need to sit down with Ron Atkinson for a rollicking after the first game. They'd have just sat down and said, let's get on with it in the replay, lads. And that's exactly what happened. It's not that Brighton didn't turn up. United just played so strongly. And there's some, it was 3-0 by half time. So the game was over. And there's just one little. Well, I shouldn't say it's a funny story because then if you say that and then tell the story and it's not funny, people will soon tell you. But in the first game, as well as Moses being banned, their captain Stevie, what's his face? I've forgotten his name now.
Where's Poppy Corn?
Foster.
What was he called, Rog? The captain.
Steve Foster.
Sorry, Steve Foster. Senior moment. Apologies. Steve Foster was the character.
Yeah.
Steve Foster was the captain, and quite a live wire. Quite a very visually noticeable character on the pitch. Quite hard, well built. Always wore a headband to cover scar tissue that he'd got from not for fashion. It'd be worn for fashion nowadays, but this was to protect scar wounds, scar tissue from the stitches he'd had over the years. So there he was with his headband, but banned for the first game. So the papers wanted a story after the replay, after the first game, ready for the replay. Stevie Foster came forward and says, United have had their chance. My team played well without me. We'll murder them in the second. We'll beat them in the second game, he said, and I'll make all the difference. So he was coming back from his suspension. He'll make all the difference. 3-0. We're going into half time. United have gone 3-0 up. And for the rest of those 2 or 3 minutes in the ground, and while the teams went off the pitch, 25,000 United fans were singing to a man and to a woman, Stevie Foster, what a difference you have made.
That is a great story.
It was just nobody planned that. It just came up, and like you say, the wit of the crowd. Yeah. But it couldn't make a difference, and it was United's 7th ever FA Cup win. I think that equalled the record, and we were happy, Roger.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, European football again.
Yeah, indeed.
Got your mic on, Rog? You got? No? No, it's good. Can hear you. Yes, European football. And of course, sorry, go on.
And momentum for Ron Atkinson.
Yeah.
Momentum for Ron Atkinson, and we'd win the league next season. That was the plan, I think.
It was the plan.
I don't know whether you remember when Steve Foster left Brighton, Pete. He went to Brighton. He went to Aston Villa the season, and when he signed for Aston Villa, it was just before they played United, so they had him out on the pitch. So Steve Foster got a load more stick off the United fans when he signed for Aston Villa as well.
Oh, brilliant! No, I hadn't remembered that, but I couldn't even remember the fella's second name. So, good that he got the stick. He took it very well, to be fair, Foster, during the game and afterwards. He took it very well. You know, just a couple of things quickly. I realise time's going on, Tim, but Brian Robson scored 2 goals that evening, and then we got a penalty in the 63rd minute, which Muren took. That was very unselfish of Brian Robson. He took penalties. If he'd have taken that penalty and scored, he would have equalled Stan Mortenson's record of scoring, the only player to score 3 goals, a hat-trick, in an FA Cup final. I still don't think that's been done since '53. But he had a chance to equal it that night, but let Muren take it. And there's Poppycorn, brilliant. That was the next thing I was going to say.
Brilliant.
After the Stevie Foster song, he sang Happy Birthday. The crowd, United's end, Matt Busby was, let me think, it was 1983, and he was born in '09. So Matt Busby would be about 72, I think, then.
Brilliant.
And they just sang Happy Birthday. And they could hear it on the TV cameras, and people watching at home could see it, and they flashed on Matt Busby, and it made the great man's night. And you know, when I saw that picture there of Robson going up for the cup, it just reminded me that right until even to almost present day, we've not won anything for 3 years. But even as a grown man and a rough, tough Stretford ender that I used to be. I still find it hard not to well up when I see a United captain go up and lift a trophy. I'm proud and I'm happy like any Red there, but probably like a lot of other supporters, it'll just take me back to when I first started going and my dad. And mates I may have lost and all that without getting maudlin. There's a lot of emotion in seeing your team lift a trophy, because you do it for all your brothers and sisters that are the Manchester United supporters, wherever they live, whether it's in Manchester or in the UK or around the world. It's such a powerful emotion, I find, and I'm looking forward to getting to the next one. And if Ollie does it, God bless him, then I think he'll deserve it. And most Manchester United fans will be delighted to see, not just to see us win something, of course they will, but to see Ollie get that time that Ron Atkinson bought that night, that Roger mentioned. It gives a manager momentum. Fergie needed that cup win after 4 years just to hang on to the job and deliver a title after 7 years. So anyway, there you go.
Terrific insight again from you, Pete. Tremendous. We'll go to Roger for the final word. Just Roger, when you look back at that cup run and the cup final, what are the lasting memories from you, or what were when you reflect on it? I know we've touched on some things, but is there anything else that you wanted to add in terms of what it meant, maybe?
I think for me it meant 2 things. It meant Norman Whiteside was younger and was, probably the greatest young player in Britain at the time. And it also said that we had Brian Robson, and he was our linchpin, and he was the greatest. And just seeing, Robbo go up the stairs there and lift the cup. He looked so fresh. He always looked so good, Brian Robson. I was so envious of him, but he really was top quality. Of course, he did it again in '85 and 1990, and he was just a tremendous servant for the club.
Tremendous stuff. Well, that caps off episode 5 of Walking Down the Warp Road. Roger, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Hopefully we can be back on at some point. And if you haven't already, folks, if you're watching, please consider subscribing to the channel. Or if you haven't signed up for YouTube, you could sign up for YouTube and get involved in the comments during the episodes. We'd love to hear everybody's memories and stories. Everything it's all crescendoing into a nice historical package for us on these episodes. So anyway, thank you for all those that tuned in and got involved, and we will see you next month. Bye-bye.
Cheers, everybody.
Thank you.